we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive. And the reason being, so right after Thanksgiving, inevitably, I have so many people reach out and they say, Doc, can I do a cleanse, or what's a quick way to detox? I gotta do something. I'm not feeling great. And so tonight we'll cover, if you're going to do any kind of a cleanse or any kind of a detox, there are several things that you really want to make sure that are involved in your cleanse or detox, to make sure that they're super effective, that all your goals are met. You're going to lose weight, you're going to get healthier, all of those fun things. And also just, right now I'm kind of telling everyone to pump the brakes. Just pump the brakes, because although we think this is a great time, and I only say pump the brakes because we want to set ourselves up to win. And in order to do that, usually waiting to the first part of the year is just a better time. We've got about 4 weeks to go of navigating health and health habits. So tonight we'll do a deep dive. And I'm going to talk about the different detox pathways, which are always good. And we probably talked about them several times here on the Health Made Simple show. We'll do a deep dive again. Remember why it is so important for all of us, quite frankly, to do some kind of cleanse or detox every year that engages in that process here. So we'll dive into those deep. And of course, we got some clinical insights here as well.
Awesome. I'm so glad that we're doing that, Bart, because I think for anything that I'm like committing to, it's so nice to have a good foundation, like an understanding of like the what and the why and the how. I'm glad we're touching on it tonight.
Yeah, and because sometimes I agree with you 100%. No doubt this time of year, and when we kick off our cleanse in January 2nd this year, and often part of the goals, and they're great goals, they're great intentions, is to do things like lose weight, which inevitably happens, and for 99% of participants. Yet to bring it a little deeper makes it more sustainable. And that's what we'll talk about tonight as well, because that's part of the 4. So kind of our title tonight is how to cleanse or detox, and the 4 simple steps. Really, that's what I want to walk through tonight.
Yes, keeping it simple. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, should we take a little dive into clinical insights, Bart? I know that you were getting to see people today after the holiday.
Yeah, it's great. I love this time of year. There's something about there. Everything just gets a little bit more real, and it's so fascinating. The conversations that I was able to have today with so many people that came in, they're literally just on another level of consciousness, of kindness, of body awareness, of a little bit of everything, experiential, real conversations, which I love. So I do want to share a couple. And again, if you're new to the podcast or new to the show here, welcome, of course. And for those of you that are back every week, thank you for being here. Appreciate everything that you do and how you keep sharing it out and spreading love. The clinical insight part, which we usually start with here, is really just the insights that I have while I'm practicing. And today is Tuesday, so it's one of the days that I'm in clinic. And there are situations or experiences that I believe would be helpful, useful for everyone to hear. And tonight is no different. In fact, tonight there's a couple very cool ones that I think are super applicable for all of us to go, aha. All right. So with that being said, I'll dive in. First one, I don't know how well this one's going to come over. So everyone so hear me out as I talk and walk through this, because I want to say that this one right here is a little bit of a higher level. It taps into a little bit more of a spirituality consciousness to understand what I'm really trying to say in this. All right. So having a conversation with a young lady, and this happens very, very frequently. Today it happened several times. So I don't even have one to say. I'm going to say this happened several times today. And the way I'm going to phrase this is that there is probably one of the single worst questions that we can ask ourselves when it comes to health is this question. All right. And everyone, before you get mad at me and be like, well, that's stupid, I'll give an explanation. Is this simple question: what's wrong with me? I'm prepping that by saying that the body believes everything that the mind tells it. And when we are giving a diagnosis, and that's what you're given by your doctors, by me, by all the doctors who you go to, and you say, Doc, what's wrong with me? And then they say, well, you got the boogly woogly disease. You've got blank. Once that enters the mind, if it's accepted, and this is why I say this is a little bit on the spiritual level, there's a little bit more higher consciousness conversation. Once you accept it as truth, your body will operate as if. So if you accept the diagnosis that you have a scoliosis, if you accept the diagnosis that you have cancer, if you accept the diagnosis that your problems are all because you have something called fibromyalgia, or you have hormone balance or too little estrogens, whatever it may be, if we accept that as truth, we will operate and produce more of that. And we will unfold and operate as if. Specifically today, this was around the conversations of looking for more diagnostic testing to find out what's wrong with me. Me meeting the patient. Specifically in this one girl's situation, she has a really tight hip flexor. Okay, they go, no big deal. It's just a tight hip flexor. It's a muscle, right? You'd think so. But oftentimes when people have chronic issues, we are frustrated. And in the frustration, we start thinking there must be something really wrong with me. Therefore, I must go and do something different to find the answer what's wrong with me. So she tells me, Doc, I'm going to get an MRI and a nerve conduction test. I said, okay. What do you do once you have the MRI? She said, I don't know. I said, well, who reads your MRI? She said, well, I think they're going to send it to the orthopedic surgeon. I said, you're right, they are. That's who's going to get it next. And I said, what do orthopedic surgeons do? She said, surgery, but I'm not having surgery. I said, but that's what orthopedic surgeons do. She said, well, I'm definitely not going to have surgery. I said, then why are you going an MRI? In that, once I have that conversation, sometimes it sounds confusing, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, yet it is the idea of we have to ask the right questions. And I'll get to some of those better questions in just a moment here. Then she also was going to get a nerve conduction test. And that was recommended by someone else who basically had no idea. It was like from a neighbor.
What is a nerve conduction test, Bart?
So a nerve conduction test, they can put these little, we'll just call them probes on your body, stick them on your probe, and test how well your nerves are firing from like your sciatic nerve firing down your leg, and measuring it left and right. And it should have a certain measure of nerve conductivity. And your test might come back and say, well, you don't have much nerve flow. You're firing at half of the percent that you're supposed to. And they'd say, well, you have a decrease in nerve function, which then leaves the consumer, the patient, going, okay, doc, what do I do? And then you start back at square one. So for everyone listen to this, so I'll say this, and sometimes, listen, this is a challenging thing. Instead of looking for what's wrong with you, it's also important, if you're going to do that, and I understand looking for the root cause of things, which are not necessarily our symptoms. So what we get trained to do as doctors is we all get trained to do something called the differential diagnosis. This might help. And it's this big funnel. You put everything into the funnel, and then we spit out an answer. Well, you got the boogly woogly disease. You got, epicondylitis, which means that the inner part of your elbow is inflamed. That's what that means. We have these big names for these very basic understandings. So instead of asking the question, what's wrong with me? I think it's important that we also ask, what's right with me? In practical sense, it looks like this. Well, does my shoulder always hurt, or does it ever feel okay? And if so, do a diary. Literally, ask yourself, what do I do, or what leads up to my shoulder feeling better? What leads up to my shoulder feeling worse? If we do this and we get to empower ourselves and be like, wow, some of the time I'm actually good. And sometimes my body's talking to me. I can't tell you how important this is. This is why our healthcare system is semi-broken, because it's not a healthcare system, it's a sick care system that are designed masterfully at finding what's wrong with you, but leaving out what's right with you. So there's another thing I'd like to add to this, because this came up in the conversation a couple of times. In this, seeing the faces of the people, it made me think this is probably an important, at least, comment to have. And that's that very often the body leaves clues, or really it hides the answers in plain sight. the next person that wanted to go get further diagnostic, I wanted to get a CAT scan for their migraine headaches. And that's not uncommon. If you have migraine headaches, sometimes you think this is so bad, there must be something in there, like a tumor or something. And this individual, I just asked them, what do you think your body wants you to do? Couldn't answer it. So what is the best thing for you to do when you have a migraine? And she said, sleep. Often the body hides the answer in plain sight. So I wanted to share that because if we always look for what's wrong, we will find it. And the body believes everything the mind tells it. That's where your tribe matters, who you're bouncing your ideas off, your healthcare practitioners, your partners in health. And that's really what they got to be. They may not have all the answers, but they're partners in the way that you think and the way that you're going to look and navigate the roads ahead of you, because some of those roads might be very, very difficult. And that's often the case when it comes to chronic health issues, because that's when we start to fish for things. So if you have chronic conditions, make sure your health team's in line, make sure you're stepping up to the plate. Sometimes there's a fair amount of work to get done that you're not doing. One of the ladies I was speaking to today has this chronic shoulder issue. And half of the time it feels good, the other half of the time it doesn't feel bad. And we know exactly when it feels bad. And it's when she paints too much.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I wanted to share that clinical insight. I don't know what everyone's going to do with that one, but nonetheless, that is, the body often will leave clues in the answers right in plain sight. And if you're going to ask the question, what's wrong with me, be willing for your own consciousness also to ask yourself, what's right with me? When is it right? When does it feel good? When am I doing good? And then also work with that data as well. All right. So
All right,
no.
can I just say, like, I think that is so powerful to recognize, like, that our words carry weight and meaning. So even when we're in these scenarios where we may have question of like what's going on and on like the search, recognizing that we hold so much capacity to heal ourselves is so awesome.
Yeah, it's semi-heartbreaking to me sometimes when a patient or a mom or dad, especially when the parents come in with their labeled child. And I know that those words, that concept is migrating through every cell and tissue and organ in their body. And it's acting as if and treating, kind of unfolding that. So give it some thought. And again, that is no doubt, I think that's kind of the higher level consciousness and higher level thinking about our own bodies, but those are the conversations that seem to happen every time this time of year. I don't know why. So, and those unfolded wonderfully. They don't always unfold great because, and I get it, because sometimes people are literally showing up at my office and say, "Doc, what's wrong with me?" And it's my job as a practitioner, I believe, to help navigate and understand exactly what they mean by that. Help me navigate what's going on, but also flip the script a little bit and say, you know what, Whitney, you're doing fantastic. You're awesome. And your body's talking to you a little bit. And if we do these things, you're probably going to get healthier. Yeah.
It's a good strategy, Bart.
Yeah. All right. The second one's really cool as well. And I'm going to start with this as saying, would you do this to get the results? That's my question. Leland, what would you do to get results? I just love that question, period. So what would you do to get results? So let me lay this out. 80-year-old male, chronic heart condition, meaning AFib, arrhythmias, keeping it up all night, multiple trips to the ER visit in the middle of the night, all kinds of stuff. 3 or 4 different types of medications between blood pressure medications and cholesterol, all this stuff. And happens to have a decent tribe. And the tribe pushes him on the health end of things. And he's an action taker. So he might pump the brakes a little bit, but he takes action. So this situation got all the way to where he had multiple consults with his doctor, who I've never met, but I really have great respect for him because his doctor was also pumping the brakes. His medical doctor, his cardiologist, said, really, the only next step we have here is to put in a pacemaker and maybe cauterize some nerves and change some things up. And those are very, very invasive. I know they do them frequently, but they're very, very invasive. So we looked kind of for this last ditch effort. And I said, all right, well, if we're going to do this, what about this protocol? And from the outside, it would seem extreme. And I want to share it with you. So you're familiar, we have a product that we use. It's phenomenal for any heart health situation, meaning you want to help your heart get healthier, period, something called cataplex, it's cataplex B core.
Yeah.
Very specific, cataplex B core. 12 a day, and that's a very high dose. Now, sometimes people say, well, I don't want to overdose. When it's the beauty is on food, you can't overdose. Like, how many times did you eat way too many pieces of pizza, but you didn't die? Right. So when it comes to whole food nutrition, there's a much bigger safety net than you might think. So 12 of what's called cardiotrophin PMG, which is probably one of the most significant support and literally helpers of the heart that there is out there. 12 of those. 8 hawthorns. Hawthorn, if anyone knows that herb, is one of the most phenomenal therapeutic herbs for the heart. So right there is 32. Then there was 6 magnesium lactates. So we're roughly 40 pills new, and he is already on a significant protocol. His total pill count per session is over 40.
That's a power play.
Power play. So then we got to look at outcomes. What are you willing to do for your desired outcomes? No surgery in sight. Went to the doctor's visit yesterday. Docs, this is what's awesome with. So no AFib, no arrhythmias, nothing. He was having 4 a day, ER visits happening more and more frequently, nothing happening. Goes to a doctor. And this is what I love. And this is why I still have so much faith in the people that are inside the system. So this particular doctor says, what are you doing? This is phenomenal, because he has everything monitored through like his Apple Watch and everything. Doc says, what are you doing? And he shows him, shows him the supplements. And Doc writes down all the ingredients. Looking to learn. Beautiful, right? Absolutely beautiful. So he turns around and says, listen, I don't think we should do anything. Meaning no pacemaker, no cauterizations, no extra meds. In fact, why don't you start coming off all the meds? Let's pick one at a time, and they'll work that strategy out, and I'll give some insight there as well. So my question for those out there, when they say they did everything they could, maybe there's another level that it's outside of the box. In order to get something different, we ultimately have to become different. Yeah. So that one's near and dear. Go ahead.
It's such a strong, it's such a strong share. I think many times we might feel that we've done like everything, like my quotes here, everything. And there's more that can be done. And I know you mentioned that he happened to have a good tribe, but I want to say also that can be such a conscious choice when you have people around you who are supportive of trying other things, and like so cool to look for a different path. And if your tribe, including your practitioners, are like willing to learn and see new ways forward, there's so many ways to heal.
Yeah. In that part, and I'm glad you mentioned your practitioners, because your practitioners are part of your tribe. And you can't expect all of those practitioners to have all the wherewithal, all the different things. It's not a fair assumption. So sometimes you got to go outside of your current mode and look for other practitioners to become part of your tribe and learn how to use. It's almost like you're putting together a baseball team, and you find this person and they're awesome, but they only are awesome at second base. So you let them play second base. Cool. But you don't let them pitch. And that's sometimes how we got to take our input from our team members. Maybe you go to cardiologists and they're awesome with the heart, but maybe they're not going to be the ones who advise you on your exercise, I don't know, or your diet. So I'm really super happy about this particular situation. And it doesn't mean that one day, maybe things change, and maybe, it's 80 years old. Maybe that ticker has, a limited time limit. Who knows yet? The fact that he's going so far out of the traditional box. And again, I'll say that again, over 40 pills in the morning, over 40 pills in the evening. I think that's because I know it's just that new protocol is probably roughly 40 pills. So a lot. Some people say, I'd never do that, or that's too many. Too many for what? Depending on what you want.
Too many for what? Absolutely.
Yeah, too many for what? Yeah. All right. So let's roll on here. And this is just a fun one. And this is what I love hearing from. This is the part that inspires me, because through Thanksgiving and through eating good, and I'm always trying to help people level up. what they're eating, what they're thinking, what they're doing, how they move, eat, and think. And sometimes people say it's too hard. Well, this particular one came back, 6-year-old female. We're doing Thanksgiving certain ways, following grandma's recipes for years. And this time, and maybe it's been more than this time, but she shared with me today that she took all those recipes that her whole family loved, and she was having all her kids in town. So she wanted to give them the traditional family recipes, and just made all the ingredients from organic stuff, changed the sugars, from sugar to honey, and everyone loved it. Everyone was like, oh my God, I love grandma's recipe. Little did they know, all the ingredients were 100% organic. So it's just a beautiful reminder that when we take action and have intention, we can make good things happen. And it is just as easy to eat good and clean than it is to not to do it. So it's always fun to hear those things.
Yeah, what a great way to love and serve your family.
Yeah. And I always say with those, and again, because I had another client today, and we were talking about getting gluten out of her child's diet. And she said, so hard. I said, no, it's not hard. It's just different. Hard means that you're going to get hurt. Changing gluten in a child's diet is not hard. It is different. And how do I know that? Because the child doesn't know. If you give it because you can go to the store right now. Let's just say there's she said, literally, we were talking about not Cheetos, but those cheese crackers.
The little peanut butter cheese crack. Oh wait, the Cheez-Its.
Yes, Cheez-Its. Well, you now can go to the store and they look like Cheez-Its, but they're like cauliflower.
Yes.
Yes.
And like orange and everything.
Orange and everything. Yeah. So it's just, yeah. So it is not difficult. It's different. And that needs to be the theme, because again, our bodies believe everything our minds tell them. And if we say it's hard all the time, you're really going to believe that on a soulful level. And it's going to be hard to take action. It's hard to get that momentum going. So those are the 3 insights today.
That's some pretty good stuff. I know when I've got like a bunch of heavy shit to carry, sometimes I'm like, wow, it's going to be really hard. But if I literally tell myself it's not going to be that tough, somehow it goes easier, Bart. It's a real thing.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
All right, Bart. So shall we slide into one of our favorite topics here on the Health Made Simple show?
Yeah, let's talk about cleansing and detox. And so let me kind of set the stage by saying there's really 4 things. So if you're going to do any type of cleanse and detox, because I know many people right now are thinking, when January comes, I'm going to clean my active. I'm going to do blank. And so I'm going to map out tonight with the 4 things. If you are going to cleanse, if you are going to detox, and this kind of follows suit, quite frankly, with exactly how ours created and what we do on our January cleanse. I'm not saying you have to cleanse with us, yet if you're going to do something, and you're going to do some kind of detox or cleanse, make sure it has these 4 ingredients in it with these 4 different steps per se. So let me dive right in with just number one is that it has to be a real food / whole food program.
Real food and whole food.
Okay. So what that means is there's a lot of programs out there that have you take these packages and all those mumbo jumbos. I'm not going to use names tonight, and they're all crap. That's the truth. They're crap. And they may make you somehow lose a pound here or there, and it blows up afterwards. But if the ingredients are not 1 ingredient type foods, you got to get rid of them. It's not a cleanse. It's not a detox. So number 1, we have to stop all the toxins from coming in. It means we got to eat a real whole food diet. And what's interesting in this part of it is that, so a lot of people consider that their cleanse. And it has to go a step farther. So this is what we'll run into these next several weeks. We're going to see this at the clinic. People are going to say, well, I'm going to do my cleanse. My husband's going to do it with me, but he's only going to do the food part. He's not going to do the supplements or whatever else. And that analogy is similar to this. Folks, listen, you're supposed to be eating real food only. It's the equivalent of driving the speed limit. That's what we're supposed to drive. But just because you're driving that, there's no added benefit. There's no gain by just doing. So that is what we're supposed to do as human beings, which means we're not supposed to put toxins in the body. So I want to throw that out there because there's a little misperception that we can maybe cleanse in January, or like eat real food for January, but then for 11 months put toxins in our body in that one phase, that 1 month of not putting toxins in, is still going to somehow correct the 11 months of putting toxins in.
Hmm. I think even like, I know we're not saying any names for any options, but I think of that cleanse that's like a little bit of maybe like some lemon juice and some water, and that's basically like all that you eat. And I think like, how could that extrapolate to like 11 months?
Yeah.
That,
And we'll get, and that's how I want people to think. So the detox or cleanse, whatever you're going to get involved in, one, we have to make sure it's 100% real food. That's a must. Two, and this is a real important part, I'm going to dive into this part a little bit more. We are no doubt trying to kind of biohack the system. And as a result, because we have 11, 12 months of more or less, even if you're a good clean eater, I'm a good clean eater, we're still exposed to so many chemicals and so many toxins. Next week's episode, most likely we're going to do it on toxins. It is a must hear. Not fun though. Not fun.
every time we do a toxin episode, I feel like my eyes are like, oh wow, they're everywhere.
But I intentionally wanted to do this one first, because then when you hear about the toxins and you hear what I'm about to say right now about how to go through the different phases of detox, you go, okay, I got it. I'm going to get exposed, but I have a plan and I'm going to rehabilitate my body. So the second part, so number one, we have to have real food. Number two, we have to have agents involved, tools. Those are going to be your supplements. Those are going to be herbs. Those are going to be very specific tools that you're going to use to speed up this process so it doesn't take 12 months to detox. So we're going to enhance. Now, the goal here is this, that we enhance the system, meaning your body's ability to detox. We're not going to try to detox for you. We're trying to get your body to become better at detoxing. In a nutshell, hear this one close, everyone. The downregulation of health, disease, disharmony, diseases in the human body are predominantly a result of the inability to detoxify properly. Our cells get stressed, essentially. They break down and diseases take over. There's a big difference between when we were 10 years old and 40 years old, 15 and 55. When we say things like, I used to be able to eat that all the time. And the reason is because your detox pathways were open. Once we clog them up, just going back to a good diet is not enough. 25 years of doing this, 25 years of practice. The beauty is when you open up those detox pathways, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of liver detox, game changer. Everything you're hearing on podcasts, everything we hear about all these different anti-aging strategies. That's what it's all about. And I'm going to map it out in just a moment here, where it's easier than we think. You just have to have a good strategy. And that's essentially the cleanse that we do in January. It's simple as it seems from the outskirts. I don't know that cleansing is, I don't know if you'd ever call them simple or easy, but if they were simple or easy or fun, I think the cleanse that we put together in January is probably as simple, easy, and as fun as it can get for a cleanse, right?
Definitely, yes. And doable.
And doable, 100% doable. All right, so I want to get a little bit technical for everyone for just a moment and talk about the 3 different parts of detoxification. So there's phase 1, and that's what we call phase 1 of detoxification. And phase 1 is when something comes in and it activates the liver. It could be a toxin that comes in the body, and that could be things like hairspray, perfumes. It could be birth control pills. It could be any type of medication for that matter. It could be fragrances. It can be environmental toxins. It could be the Tide soap that you put in your laundry. It could be the fluoride in the water that you're drinking. It can also be alcohol. It could be caffeine. All of these will activate phase 1 of detoxification. And what phase 1 is this? And I'm going to talk about all the good things that do it as well. So in phase 1, your liver says, all right, bad guy alert. So what do? We're going to do one of 2 things. We are going to break it down and make it smaller so it's less toxic and less dangerous for the human body. Or 2, we're going to oxidize it. So oxidation and then create a situation where it becomes water soluble so we can get it the heck out of the body. So that's what phase one is. It is to identify it, break her down, oxidize it, kick it out. Now, last week we talked a little bit about oxidation and how that's actually bad for us. Here's where it gets a little tricky. And this is so important to understand, especially my alcohol lovers and my caffeine lovers. Just follow me closely when I get into phase two. So alcohol and caffeine can activate phase one. And when it oxidizes, when we bring in those chemicals, and again, the fragrances and the smells, the birth control pills, all of that stuff, the body breaks that down and it makes it into what's called a free radical. Free radicals can actually damage our DNA. Our bodies are making these free radicals because it has a system in place to then go into phase two. So the body breaks down the initial one, makes it into a free radical, which is very dangerous for the human body. We're always talking about antioxidants. The reason we need antioxidants is because of free radicals. So here comes phase two. Phase two is when we bind onto, in what we call conjugate, that free radical. We grab onto it, and then we start to kick it and escort it out of the body. So there are some good things, though, that also activate what we'll call phase one. And those are things like vitamin C. Those are things like cruciferous vegetables. Those are a lot of our fruits and vegetables. Good whole foods will activate the liver to rev up its phase one detoxification. Then once that happens, so we have these guys that are broken down, they're made into free radicals. And here's where things can go bad. Your body typically is really good at phase one. It's phase two where we get in trouble. Phase two requires, very specifically, some really, really important things like sulfur, requires trace minerals. It needs some B12 in the liver. It needs, I don't think what else we need here. Amino acids to make glutathione. You need glutathione. If we do not have these things, then all of a sudden, these free radicals that we make recirculate into the body. And here's where this shows up in real life. Let's just say that you're a coffee drinker, or an alcohol person, or you're on birth control. Let's just keep the alcohol and coffee, because I know those probably cover everybody for the most part.
For the most part.
If you're getting up drinking your coffee, yes, your coffee can actually increase detoxification. No doubt about it. Coffee's been used medicinally for thousands of years, as long as the detox pathway works. Phase two is the next place it goes. Once it's created into a free radical, now your body has to bind onto that. And what really does that, one of the most common things, is something called sulfur. Where do we get sulfur? Vegetables, specifically our cruciferous vegetables. So we need high doses of these cruciferous vegetables. Reason I'm bringing all this in. So when you start thinking of your cleanse and your detoxification, this is why it has to be whole food. This is why just a powdered up detoxification program is not going to work. We want to bring in these whole foods, especially for phase one and phase two. So if you're having coffee and you don't have an abundance, and what's an abundance? 5 to 7 servings of vegetables per day. One of the ways that we help hack that, I know that people don't eat that much. I eat a fair amount of vegetables. I do not eat 5 to 7 servings. I don't do it. And I eat basically vegetables with every meal I have. So one of the ways that we do it with the different products are what we call the agents that we use with our cleanse. And I'm not going to go into those tonight. Maybe in a couple of weeks I'll do that. But those are very specific, and they have cruciferous vegetables. They have things like juniper berry. They have the very things that help bind these increased amount of sulfur that the liver can use. So you're literally ramping up the power, the effectiveness, and the health of the liver, which is awesome. Let's talk alcohol for a moment. And so what happens for the coffee drinkers, if you don't have enough of the phase two detoxification pathway open, after about an hour or two, you then hit the wall. The wall is caused by those free radicals being released back into the body and exhausting you, because now you're toxic from producing your own free radicals. Very same thing happens at night. So just people wonder, hot flashes, all this stuff. This is how it goes. You drink alcohol at night, you will engage phase one of liver detoxification, which is going to produce free radicals. If you do not have enough of your detoxifying agents, or for 11 months, you've been polluting your body, what happens in the middle of the night, 1, 2, 3 hours later, you wake up with a hot flash as your liver's really trying to push all those free radicals through the system. And you can't do it because you're not conjugating those drugs. So a little bit technical. Phase 1, break it down, make it water soluble. Simultaneously, you're creating a toxin for the body. Phase 2 is where things go bad because we don't have enough of the agents to clear things out. Phase 3 is now when we start to use things like our kidneys and our bladder, and we could urinate and pee out all these bad guys. Or we go in another direction. We use our small intestine, large intestine, and we poop them out. So things can get a little sticky in that category as well. That's when we, almost all year round, I talk about gut health. And if you go into a detox or a cleanse, and during it, you're doing everything I was just talking about. You're eating all your cruciferous vegetables, you're keeping it clean. You got one food, one ingredient foods, everything from God's garden, using all the other agents, you're helping detoxify your body, but you find yourself binding up and not pooping that good. And then it's clearly indicated that we need to create more health and more balance for your gut. Most likely you have some what we call dysbiosis. And now you know that eating good, you're not even healthy enough, your gut's not healthy enough to transfer that food and those toxins out. And just quick note, and this is interesting. The easiest thing to digest is sugar and bread. Okay. The hardest thing, so the sugar is probably one of the single most destructive elements on the face of this earth for the human body. Okay. Well researched, well documented, there's a lot of truth there. So the easiest is the most dangerous, and the hardest might be the most beneficial. And the most beneficial, the hardest to break down, is red meat. So that's the spectrum. Now, when you're cleansing, you probably want to get rid of both of those, because we need to meet somewhere in the middle so your body doesn't have a super hard time breaking the food, so you can go through a phase of rehab. And that'd be part of the biohack, but absolutely removing everything that is causing more damage in the body. So when we get a little bit closer to our January 2nd date, I'll go into these details. And then, of course, those are the details for the people that are in our cleanse that we do our private Facebook group. Those are the deep dives of the education that I get to do with them, because this information, it doesn't fall upon deaf ears. If people are listening, so, all right, how does this work? How is it all of a sudden I start eating vegetables, I feel better, my hot flashes go away, my blood pressure changes? How do all these things happen just because I'm eating different foods? And we're using, particular tools, supplements, vitamins, et cetera. So that's phase 2. And phase 3 is getting it out. So phase 1, breaking it down. Phase 2, binding on it. And that's where things kind of get a little bit tricky. And that's where whatever agent you're using, and that Whitney, is why just having the clean diet isn't really enough when it really comes to ramping the body, leveling up the body, or really doing a detox or cleansing.
Definitely. It's so interesting that you use the word anti-aging when you talk about a cleanse and about like just these phases of liver detox. Because we think about anti-aging so often as like, I don't know, something you put on your face, or like a practice you have, what have you. And to think about phase 2 as something that contributes to hot flashes and energy crashes and generally like fatigue, like those are the moments where we feel like the most aged, right?
Yeah. So a good example of those free radicals running back through the body, if our liver doesn't have the proper agents, sulfur and B12 and amino acids, we recirculate it. Those free radicals are still trying to get out of the body. And a very common place to leave the body is through the skin. So when I start to see skin rashes and psoriasis break out and all these things, this is exactly what we're talking about. That is why so often, and we've talked about here in the Health Made Simple show, that skin issues are really rooted gut liver, always, 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 always. And can the body get rid of those toxins? And if it does, most likely you'll clear the skin up. If it doesn't, or you're starting to see more skin rashes or more flushing skin or just random skin issues, most likely it's because, or even aging of the skin, it's because those free radicals are still circulating through the body. And the skin is really the largest eliminative organ of the human body. So
It is a detox pathway, right?
it is a detox pathway. It's preferable not in, so in phase 1, 2, and 3. In phase 3, it shouldn't be going out the skin. It's it's not supposed to go out there. It's supposed to go out either through, the kidneys, bladder, or it's supposed to go out through the intestines. So if it's coming out the skin, it means the other pathway is backed up. And that goes everything from aging skin to wrinkling to acne to cystic acne to psoriasis to random rashes to, skin patterns. All of those things go back to liver, they go back to the gut.
In a way, it's really great news because you can identify like that the insides is what you're gonna like pay a little bit more attention to, and then you don't have to like get all the stuff for all the all the creams and things, right?
It is, and it's very interesting. I get so I get it. We think, well, here it is, so I'm going to apply it here, and no doubt, some of those things they have a temporary effect, or maybe they're even longer. It doesn't necessarily mean that the system is healthier, and so again, when I hear, people say, well, I'm just going to eat good for 30 days, or I think there's, one of the most common things, well, I'm giving up alcohol for 30 days. And I want to push. So if you're listening to this, or you have someone in your family listen to this, or you're sharing this with somebody, I want to challenge those people to step your game up a little bit. Right. So if you've done that before and you've gone 30 days without alcohol, good for you. And like, literally, that's awesome. And so it does a couple of things. One, if you can go 30 days without alcohol, it lets you know you're probably not an alcoholic. You don't need it. And it's just really nice not putting that one particular toxin. Next week, we're going to go into how many others there are, but that particular one for 30 days, granted you did 11 other months. My wife always gives the example of, when it comes to what we do or don't put into the bodies, let's just say you go get your car washed, right? And it's beautiful and it's shiny and everything. You spend time and money, maybe effort. I love washing my truck. I just love my truck. I go out there and I hug my truck. We have like a really nice relationship. Anyways.
It's a beautiful thing, Bart.
So, when you wash your car and you're taking pride of it and you're cleaning it up, you wouldn't intentionally go drive through mud puddles. Right? You can do your best to avoid them as long as you possibly can. If it gets really dirty again, most likely you're going to go back and clean it up again. Yet when we think about the human body or our bodies, how often do we see intentionally, like day 31 comes and just plow the toxins back in? And, I think just in light of everything from what we hopefully have learned in the last couple of years, the incredible importance and the value that health has. And it's most valuable when you don't know, when you don't know you need it. Mm. And it's only valuable if you have it. So that's the true value of health, is like having it is the value. If you don't have it, there's trouble to be followed. So, maybe this year, if you're listening to this for the first time, or you have these tendencies to do really good for a couple of days or a week or something like that, maybe you have a different plan. And that falls into this category we'll get to in just a moment here, of the 4 things that will help you have a successful cleanse. And so the next part of this, so first one we said is we got to make it whole food, so no toxins coming in the body. And if you're really good at that one already, expand that out to no toxins in your environment too. So maybe you start to do things like looking at the soaps that you use in your house, or the toothpaste, or the what would I say, your hair wash, but I don't, different stuff for different people. But
maybe look at the shampoo. Cool.
Yeah, shampoo, take a look at all that stuff. And the detergents you're using in your laundry, all of those things, because all those chemicals, as you're going to find out next week, are leaching into the human body, no doubt about it. So, and if you have better ones in your house, it really helps us be better. So with first one, get rid of the toxins, eat whole foods. Number 2, make sure that we have agents that help us essentially biohack, enhance the detoxification, the opening of detox pathways. If someone suggests, hey, you should do this detox, you should ask them, does it increase or open up the pathways of detoxification? Does it enhance the systems and organs that are involved in this? And what are those organs? It's your gallbladder, it's your liver, it's your stomach, it's your pancreas, it's your kidneys, it's your intestines. Are those going to be enhanced somehow with the things that you're bringing into your body to, in some degree, biohack in this 10 days, 1 month period of time for maybe all, the collection of toxins over the course of a year. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is time. So how long should someone cleanse? I don't know there's one particular answer. Yeah, you certainly have to give it enough time. The longer, the better, right? And if you haven't cleansed and you're going for your first one, don't go for 30 and 60 days. Don't do that. I would just say, just shoot for, so we have like a 10 and a 21 day. If you've never cleansed before, the beauty is go for a 10 day. It's a little bit more than a week. It's really important for many reasons that I think you need to go beyond a week. I think you need to get through the at least the week cycle and develop some patterns in your body instead of like simple countdown. We are very good at counting down a week at a time. There's a week until vacation, a week until this. So we have the wherewithal to do that. So I would go beyond 7 days, 10 days minimum. So, and definitely crossing a weekend because patterns change and our routines change. So give yourself at least 10 days. And if you happen to do ours, the beauty is what we'll typically find is days 2 through 5 are the ones that can be a little rough. Day 1 starts with excitement. It's easy breezy. And day 2 through 5, you start to notice, wow, well, I'm going to hold off on eating that today. And I'm going to do this over here. And there's going to be some differences. And you'll notice and experience some things going on. Usually it's blood sugar changes. And as you do that and you get, 6-7 days into it, that's when you usually hit your stride. And if you figure out when I've gone 10 days, you can extend it. You just go ahead and get more agents, or supplements, vitamins, so you can continue on into what we call the 21-day cleanse. But time is important because remember what you're competing against. A year.
And to hit that stride feels so good. I'm so glad that you acknowledge that there's that little bit of part in the beginning where the body's talking to you, to use our language from earlier, right? But then like the body is so happy with you and your shifts and your changes. Feels great.
Yeah, and that's the other part. Yeah, I think it's so important that we allow an opportunity to experience what's taking place. And it takes a moment. So it's no different than anytime you do something new. So I'm super looking forward to this year's cleanse for many reasons. And I know this is going to be really hard for me this time because my patterns and habits, I've definitely eaten a lot more nuts than I use pistachio nuts every night. We're going to take those nuts out. I eat nut butters nonstop. I eat copious amounts of organic cheeses and all of that's gone. So this is going to be a really tough pattern interrupt. And knowing that it's going to be that tough tells me I need it more. And that's a little gut check we all have to do. So if we know like, whoa, this is going to be probably a hard one because this is what I'm doing right now. Those when you have to find that little inner voice being like, okay, this is the work you got to put in. You got to hunker down. Mm-hmm. And yes, it might stumble, but because we've been there so many times, you will hit a stride. All of us will. And that takes time to hit that stride. All right. So let me dive into the fourth one. We're doing great on time. And so time is a third part. You have to have a certain amount of time. And I think 10 days is a good starting point. If you can do 21 days, everyone knows that to break a habit, 21 days is typically the key benchmark. So it's wonderful to be able to do that. The third one is you have to ask yourself, is what I'm doing sustainable? Okay. So one of the conversations I had today, and this will happen from now all the way through January, people say, Doc, can you tell me a little about the cleanse? We have posters up and they'll ask me questions. Tell me about it. Well, Doc, I did this cleanse before. It was awful. It was so hard. This is not hard. This is a whole food cleanse that we do. And if your cleanse is about eating food, which it should be, right? So I'm not a big advocate. I've been doing this long enough to know that if you do something so drastic, the likelihood of you returning to do it again or to sustain it or move it into the future, very, very unlikely. So the process has to be semi-enjoyable. And that's why we do the tribe. That's why we have a private Facebook group. That's why we share recipes. That's why we give so many instructions of what is taking place in the human body. We learn a lot about it. So we get to enjoy this journey. And that time frame adds to this because each day we're kind of going along, we're making this happen. But at the end of it, it needs to be sustainable. So what really changes when you're done? Ideally, the only thing that changes, you take out all the agents, the biohackers, those vitamins, minerals, and herbs that were helping you get copious amounts of sulfur into your body, copious amounts of amino acids. You pull those back out. So all those cleansing agents, the milk thistles, all that good stuff. You take those out because you were using them at probably a little bit of an advanced level that you typically would. You take those out, but you keep your diet the same. If that part of it's not sustained, if that isn't part of your plan, the detox or the cleanse that you're doing, maybe rethink it, because you know that this is one and done. You haven't made anything scalable, or you haven't really invested in the future. And that's a big part of it. So when we do our cleanse, and that, one of the things that always excites me about it, that I know that everyone who does the cleanse with us will be investing in the following year by doing it for that short period of time. I know it's only 10 or 21 days, but they will have an experience of actually eating the way that they can eat any day of the week for the rest of their lives. And that's
It
always
really
kind
is
of
a strong start to a new year, like drawing a line in the sand for your health.
it is. It's such the perfect time and setup to do this. So that's why, even though, the things I'm talking about, would be wonderful if we did it right now, but it's not very winnable right now, because the next couple of weeks, it'll just be things that change. You're going to travel here and there, with Christmas coming, and it's just the likelihood of the win is less. Where in January, many of us are ready, like, all right, let's hunker down. And now let's address that part of it. So if there's always, well, let me start with this. There's always something. There's always something coming. There's always an event. There's always a birthday. There's always a holiday. There's no way you're going to get through 30 days without someone you know's birthday, someone you know, an event, a little bit of a short trip, a national college football final, a Super Bowl, something. I've heard like all of them. And here's what I've also experienced, that you can do all of those. And that should be part of your sustainability. Your life should not have to be tipped upside down. Literally, you should be able to go to most restaurants. Well, it would be nicer if there was more restaurants that were serving organic foods and whatnot, which, by the way, our cafe has it dialed in right now. There's gonna be like food plants and all that cool stuff.
We did some taste testing today. It's really exciting.
Yes, I was doing some taste testing as well. That was great. So for those of you local, it more than ever now, we're going to have options so you can, literally get prepared meals, etc. Although I want to encourage everyone to cook and to do something different, because like I said earlier, in order for things to be different, we have to become different. And part of that is learning new recipes. And this is a big one for me. My wife always laughs at me, where left alone, I'd probably eat the same 2 things every single day. And then when we make every cleanse that comes, I'm like, wow, where did this come from? And one of you will just tell me, well, we've had that for 5 years. Yeah. So
I think it's an important aspect. I'm glad you're mentioning that, because I think there is maybe a minor fifth thing about cleanses is they can be really fun. You're literally opening your mind up to like a different way of doing things. And like when you're in community doing it, it's like a shared experience. Emma gave us a little shout out on Facebook that cleanses are fun. It could be great.
They really are. And again, it goes to that collective consciousness, where when we are putting ourselves in the consciousness of others, and collectively we are all kind of moving in the intentional same frame, and it's for love of thyself. And in that collective consciousness, it's a win. Like everybody wins, everybody around wins. So that is also a fun part about it, of doing something. And yes, there are, sometimes there's some struggles along the way, and the collective part of it makes it that much easier, makes it that much more enjoyable when other people are doing it. Or and again, I'd encourage you, if you're up for it, maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I'd love my spouse to do it, have them listen to something like this. And again, it doesn't mean you cleanse because you're doing something awful, right? It's sometimes it's just because you want to live for a long time. You want to and start to have the pride and the recognition. You want to keep your car clean. That's it. And you do a better job, and you give an experiment. And before you shut it down, at least experiment with it, experience with it. And I usually find that most people who do that, They go, yeah, and they put it on their calendar. And I think that's what so many of our, people in our community have done, put it on a calendar. And again, if you're doing, a dry January, awesome. Like, keep it up, keep doing it, and raise your bar. And if you're thinking, well, I'm just going to eat clean for 30 days, awesome. And then raise your bar.
I love it. We have just a couple questions that came in. I wonder if we have a moment to
Yeah,
address
we can.
those.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Can I cleanse if pregnant?
Can you cleanse if you're pregnant? So my preference would be no. All right. So, but let me explain that. So we are increasing. We're in our cleanse, in most cleanses or detox moments, you are intentionally increasing the speed, frequency, and ability for your body to detox. And for those reasons is why I wouldn't do it during a pregnancy. Now, that being said, would I follow the plan? Would I eat whole foods? 100%. Would I have a really hard line drawn in the sand of no toxins in this body while I'm making another life? Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. And afterwards, when nursing is done, then cleansing. And again, never for weight loss, but really to just enhance the way that the human body's function. The female body goes through a lot through the pregnancies. So right after pregnancy, of course, first thing we do is support the adrenal system. And then afterwards, rehabilitating the body. Awesome idea. Awesome idea. So it's not that it'd be poisonous or toxic or damage anything about the body. No. Yet we're intentionally enhancing the detox pathways. So I would just say if you're pregnant, pause, eat clean, super hydrate, do all those really good things, become a master at sleeping, do all those wonderful things, but not cleanse right now.
Beautiful. And then we've got a question from Amanda on Facebook. Are folks who have had some sort of bariatric surgery able to properly detox if they have some disruption to their digestive tract?
The answer is yes. So the answer is yes. So that would be in in phase 3, we are looking to get things moving through the intestines. And the beauty is, and this we could talk about this another time, or if you're doing our cleanse, the answer is yes, you can do the cleanse. There are some phenomenal products that we use that enhance things like milk thistle, calisandra root. Calisandra root has been used for long, thousands of years to help things slide better through the intestines. Most importantly, by cleaning out the liver and the gallbladder, you increase bile. And bile is a substance that the body releases to help break down things like fat, but also lubricate things to slide easily through the intestines. So 100%, no doubt, if you've had some bariatric surgery, that your body's probably been through a lot already. And so to help it detox and open up those pathways could be phenomenal. And there'd be some minor modifications about the consumption of foods, because you're probably not super ready. And this is going to be regardless of surgery. There are going to be certain people who start all of a sudden, they go so deep into it and he's eating a whole ton of vegetables, and the body can't handle it that fast. And therefore we might lean into the smoothies a little bit. So the simple answer is yes.
Beautiful. Well, I suppose we've mentioned it a little bit. In the case anyone is interested in hanging out with us starting January 2nd for the cleanse, I'll just pop a link in to the chats here. We'd love to have you all. And I suppose we find ourselves, Bart, at the end of the show. So here we are with our last question. What is one step that our listeners can take towards becoming superhuman?
And here we are at the end of it again. So, in this conversation, I think I would say a couple of things. One, I want to go back to that. It has nothing to do with our cleanse, but I want to go back to be kind to your body, ask good questions. It's so important that we do that. So even when we're talking about a cleanse, like, how do I cleanse my body would be a great question. But ask, instead of those questions of what's wrong with me, ask ourselves the question of what's right with me. How do I make myself better? And when we start to use better questions, the path ahead of us is so different. It's an entirely different road. Instead of taking a right, you're taking a left. Like, it's an entirely different journey that you'll be on by asking the right questions. So that one, although it has not much to do with the cleansing or the detox, I would say be a master at asking really good questions, and you will find that your outcomes are the ones that you really want.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here at the Health Made Simple show.
Yes, and thank you all once again for listening along, following along. Keep doing your thing. Keep sharing out. Keep spreading the love here. If you have the opportunity to give us a rating on your favorite, place that you listen to podcasts, that would be awesome. And of course, continue to take deliberate action for your mind, your body, your overall wellness. That'll be awesome.